In this episode, Ryan and I recap the 2020 Nelson Nash Institute Annual IBC Think Tank. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Banking with Life podcast. I'm your host, James Neathery.
And I'm your co-host, Ryan Griggs.
And we're glad you're here. As always, we're having fun.
Yeah.
We have a topic today.
We do.
And we have a topic today for a reason. So today's February 22nd.
Yes.
Checking my dates.
It is. Make sure. Yeah, February 22nd, 2020. And so earlier this month, we had the 2020 annual Nelson Nash Institute IBC Think Tank, the annual conference for practitioners, authorized practitioners, new practitioners, incoming practitioners, and their guests.
And it was the general public was there.
Yeah. Some of the invited guests.
Guests, yeah.
And so that happened earlier in the month.
The 5th and 6th.
The 5th and 6th of February. It was a Wednesday, Thursday. We flew out on a Tuesday, came back on a Friday. And as we normally do, sat down to podcast on that Saturday, right? Immediately after, the event was fresh.
The 8th, February 8th.
Recorded a lot. I mean, it was maybe an hour and 40 minutes.
It was an hour and 46 minutes.
One of our longer podcasts. And I had the opportunity to review it ahead of time before publishing it and decided that maybe it wasn't best to post it.
And let me tell you what, I appreciate you giving me a heads up. He's like, James, you should probably look at this and just get your input and feedback. And I don't normally listen to our podcast episodes, but I listened to enough of that to completely agree that no, it shouldn't be released.
Yeah. So why would we do that? Why we don't normally? By the way, normally the camera's on. We have the conversations that we have anyway. It's not scripted, not going to be. But this particular one was like, maybe that one doesn't make it out into the big wide world.
And I must say that it won't make it out the way it was recorded in its entirety, but we will release an awful lot of it.
Yeah.
Just because there were some really good discussions. It was fresh. Excuse me. Coming back from the think tank, it was very fresh. Mm-hmm. A lot of experiences, a lot of people, and
it was very fresh. Maybe a little too fresh.
A little raw. Got a little raw.
Look, we're very passionate, right? Things are it's very close to home. It's a matter of the heart, this kind of business, and at least it is for us. And I'm okay getting triggered every now and then, as I do. I'm all right with that. I'm cool. Not going to apologize for it. I think, as you said in your talk, there's light, there's dark. It's okay to point out which is which and draw the distinction, properly classify things.
And be the example, be the lot.
Yeah, but there's properly classifying, and then there's dwelling and spending too much time and,
A triggering event. I can trigger you trigger me, then we go and...
So this is the attempt to be positive. And there's a lot to be positive about. Don't get me wrong.
We're very positive, but like you said, we're very passionate. And so it's okay to be passionate,
right?
But it's also okay to be positive. So let's talk about the event.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we set the background here. 2-day event, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Get there. It's in Birmingham, Alabama. At a hotel there in downtown.
It's almost like a trip to Mecca.
It really is. It's the annual trip home. That's where Nelson lived. That's where his family still lives. That's where David Stearns lives, right?
My sister Kim, his wife.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a annual trip. Get to know the Birmingham airport real well. Fly out there on a plane that's a third full because ain't nobody going to Birmingham in February.
Stop it. See, be positive. Birmingham is a lovely town.
And we always have a good time. And we did. So day one.
Support the local pubs.
Right. Day one, there's, talks all day. These were 18-hour days, right? Up at 6. Got to, have the full day of formal events, meals in between, breaks in between, and then some of us have to go be social afterwards. So maybe you turn in around midnight, wake up at 6, do it all over again.
Supporting the local capitalist.
Absolutely. Yeah. Share the love.
In the breweries.
So day one, it's a Wednesday. First half of that day were talks from the board of directors, right?
Yep.
Carlos Lara, Bob Murphy, David Stearns. And then the rest of the event up until the end were in the form of breakout sessions, right? So you had 2 talks going on at the same time, right? All of the talks were from either practitioners or representatives from a few life insurance companies. And you had the option of which you wanted to attend throughout the rest of day one.
The big 4 life insurance companies were not present.
Nowhere to be found.
By choice.
Had the opportunity.
Because they chose not to.
Would David be turning down a sponsorship money? Probably not. But
right.
They didn't show up. Anyway, so certain select companies, a few of them we do business with.
5. Right? 5 companies presented, and I think the talks were limited to 50 minutes.
Yep.
So practitioners could present, and the presenting practitioners were chosen or invited to present by the board members. And they had 50 minutes. The life insurance companies had 50 minutes, and just spreading the love. And there were 5 life insurance companies there, 3 of which we actively represent and personally own. And,
so that was the structure throughout the time, and then so you were one of the breakout speakers in the early afternoon of the second day.
Early afternoon, second day, and you were the closing speaker late afternoon on the last day, second day.
Yeah.
All right, so it was really a 2-day event. It was 1 day traveling, then 1 day traveling back. It was a 4-day event for us.
It was the week, yeah.
And Jeff, oh my gosh.
Yes, keynote speaker, day one. Jeff Dice, president of the Mises Institute.
I love him. I love the way he writes. I love the way he speaks. Just a lovely gentleman, a lovely family, and enjoyed his talk very well, very much.
Got some good photographs, which are included. In fact, it's good that we're doing this second take, because by now, the February 2020 banknotes, the monthly newsletter of the Nelson Nash Institute, has been published.
And y'all couldn't write those articles. They're very good articles. I'm just saying that I read them. They're very good. And thank you for mentioning my name. I appreciate that. I thought, Neathery, you should be writing more. And I should. I digress a little. I'm just saying the articles were written fairly
There's a
quickly.
Computer right there with the keyboard. There's a notepad right there. Get to it. Anyway, so that was. It was. I recapped that in writing, so now you can get that. We'll link it at the bottom somewhere. So let's talk about So your talk, and we have not yet, but by the time this is out, we'll have the video of those presentations, and we'll make it available either in part or in whole in some format for people.
Yeah, eventually they will be made available in whole to our clients for sure.
Yeah.
And then maybe selected parts for the general public.
And I don't know, well, I'll take liberty and speak for you for a second, but we poured it on. And there were, there's parts in both of those talks that not everybody understood. And, we have a unique perspective. It comes from our particular philosophy and the things that you've learned, the things that I've learned from you, and now the experience that I've had in the business. And we had the opportunity to share that, and we did.
Yep.
So my point is, I'm not saying that we talk over people, but, there's a certain degree of complexity. It's a professional event. We're talking to people in the industry, and there's some things in there that just need to be broken down further. Right. They need to be explained.
Well, let me say that the theme, each think tank each year has a general theme, and the theme this year was framing the IBC conversation and building the perfect IBC policy. Right. And then and so that happened to be the name of my presentation, the title of my presentation. But and to go further into that, the board wanted a few topics covered, and the whole idea here this year is to, no question, frame the conversation, build the perfect IBC policy, but to create these videos to be made available to future practitioners. And so they wanted some particular topics covered, marketing, servicing your client, framing the conversation for a specific client, building the perfect policy for a specific client. And so there was kind of a list of these things, and I told David early on that, I don't market, I don't do this, and I don't do that.
It's so funny how you said it during your talk. He said they wanted you to talk about marketing, which I don't.
Well, and I don't. But we all frame the conversations that we have, right? Sure. And my whole point in my talk, it was framing the conversation. And my whole point was every time the conversation moves away from who's controlling the banking function in your life, then you're moving off into noise. And Nelson made it very simple for us. He's written 1 book, 2 books. His 10-hour presentation is available at the Nelson Nash Institute, infinitebanking.org. And you need to go and purchase that. And tell them James sent you, and then tell them Ryan sent you. But look, tell them James and Ryan sent you. You need to watch that DVD. It's Nelson Nash presenting his 10-hour seminar,
right?
And which he's never going to do again on this earth. Okay, and so if you have not heard that man deliver the 10-hour seminar, you can't speak intelligently and authoritatively about the infinite banking concept, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nelson made it very easy for us, and he left us 4 fundamentals, and this is all I covered in my talk.
Yeah.
Right, the fundamentals, think long range, don't be afraid to capitalize, be an honest banker, don't be dependent upon third-party capital, change the way you think, rethink your thinking. And then he talked an awful lot about noise, and I just laid it out that you can take his 4 fundamentals, right, and the ability to classify things correctly, and the noise is apparent.
It becomes very obvious very quickly. Clear. Very quickly.
And so my encouragement was to, be the light. Don't be the noise. Don't engage in the noise. Don't be dependent upon the noise. Don't advance the noise, but point it out so you can avoid it.
Yeah. There's so much that follows from those very simple principles, and so much does follow from simplicity. In my talk, one of the things I talked about how it's important for a mentor and a mentee to have a minimally sufficient shared value set, right? We ain't got to agree about everything, but a few things ought to be dang near set in concrete, right? And there's a certain philosophy. One of those things for me is, the philosophy toward policy design. So this is an example of how simplicity can imply a whole lot, right? I want a person to have a policy into which they can pay as much premium for as long as they might want to pay it while maintaining the preferable tax treatment of life insurance. That sounds simple, right?
It is.
And it is. It really is. But it negates a lot, right?
Absolutely.
It negates mutilated policy design. You see how there's a rabbit hole that we could quickly jump down and become triggered in. So the mutilated policy designs, and I don't even like, but 1090. Right, that's a little hashtag that's out there. Y'all see it on YouTube. We know you see it because we hear about it when you call.
It's probably going to come up right here in the suggested video on the side.
It is.
That's only one.
Just scroll by it, or spend as long as in the noise as you want. There's a lot of it. You can spend as long as you want to out in that noise. But going back to the positive, being the light, that sticking to that simplicity, so much comes from that.
Absolutely.
The trying to compete with cash, building as much cash value in year one as you possibly can to facilitate that sale. Listen, that just betrays an unwillingness to capitalize.
That's exactly what it is.
And if
I'm afraid to capitalize. I'm not thinking long range.
Nope.
Because if you look at that particular mutilated design, what it does into the future is not good.
Right.
For the policyholder or maybe even the agent. But it's great for the life insurance companies. Right.
Yeah.
We can,
less likely that the death benefit's going to get paid.
Oh my gosh. And the death benefit's going to diminish. I don't care what the illustration says. I mean, that's just one example. The other, and I kind of went through the noise, 6 or 7 different examples of noise, because back in the early days, it was pay 4 years of premium and then buy another policy. And I think somebody had to have read Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and Equipment
halfway
Finance, and seen that he capitalized that policy for 4 years, and so that's the only way to do it. And what they can't tell you, most agents, I'm not talking about the NNI practitioners, I'm talking about the general agents and some of the NNI practitioners, cannot tell you what's going on in illustration number 2 in Equipment Finance, Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker. Illustration number 1, he pays $40,000 a year in premium for 4 years, and then illustrates no premium being paid after that in illustration number 1. Tell me what happened in illustration number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and why did Nelson have to add the 6th illustration? Okay.
Important things to know, right?
Yeah, no, somebody looked at that, illustration and said, oh, that's the way you do it. And then after that, and I'm going back, 15, 20 years maybe, not that long. I'm going back 10 to 15 years. Then it was pay 7 years of premium, and then RPU, reduce pay up. And it's like, why would anybody do that? Okay, so there's more than one example of the noise. The latest noise just happens to be, I think, the 90-10 kind of a thing, or the argument that universal life is, what you buy to create capital and for cash values, and then you do banking with whole life to satisfy banking, which none of that even makes sense.
No, it doesn't. And I have found, and we talk about stories from the front lines, conversations that we're having with clients, and I have found that the people who watch the podcast, read the book, light bulb clicks, they want to do it, they want to get into a policy, this will come up in the conversation, right? So in a nutshell, and there's more to be done. We can get as technical about it as you want. We've got Society of Actuary textbooks where we'll go through the equations and get super technical about it, but in general, conceptually speaking, the problem with the mutilated policy design where the base premium is squished as close to 0 as possible, right, in order to generate as much cash value year 1, the consequences of that are numerous. One of them is you're going to lose flexibility in the later years of the policy.
Oh, it's going to
right? If you don't pay the premium that's illustrated on that's put down on the illustration, if the dividend paid, it varies at all from what's illustrated, and it will, the life insurance company will come back to you and request more premium. They'll reduce the death benefit. There will be policy in order to generate an illustration where the base premium is squished down to nothing. Something has to be added in order to make that appear as a non-modified endowment contract. The life insurance company is shifting risk back to the individual, violating the principle of insurance in some way.
But
right?
It's whole life, it's guaranteed. No,
it's in there somewhere, right? It blended PUA term rider. Exactly, all the various things. It's in there somewhere, right? And just know that it's in there for a reason. Right? It's not like it's in there just because someone said, oh, just add more language, let's complicate this just because we want to. No, it's in there for a reason. Yeah. Right? Not a lawyer, it's not legal advice, don't get me wrong. But I can read, right? And it's in there.
Yeah.
So you're losing later flexibility, you're inhibiting your ability to put money into the best place in which you can possibly put it, namely life insurance, down the road, right? If you're afraid to pay a premium, it means something has gone wrong. We got to go back to Nelson's book, right? We have to understand stealing the peas. We have to understand the value of shopping at your own grocery store. We have to understand the value of not going out the back door, right? And of buying as much grocery, paying as much as possible for those groceries. It's your business, right? Why would you want to limit yourself in the future for this one policy to pay premium down the road? Why would you want to do that?
Well,
I think I get worked up about it. I think it's more often than not, it's just a innocuous, innocent lack of understanding about what's going on in dividend
on the consumer's side.
And often the agent.
Yeah. I mean, we can go really deep into that, but my point is that's a top-down thinking. Even the like the blended PUA, the ability to even do those or insurance company constructs, right? And if you can do a 90-10, and that's where you start, because we've talked about illustrations. I'm almost tired of talking about illustrations. We have spent a lot of time talking about illustrations and what could be wrong with them and what they really are and what you really should expect, and even the proper design. When we talk about the proper design, which is an individual
customized,
design. Absolutely. But if the starting point was the split between how much premium is allocated, and it's all premium, right, to the life insurance, it's all premium. I talked a little bit about terminology and the power of words, and words have meaning in my talk as well.
Right.
And whenever we confuse the meaning of words, then we can manipulate the understanding or the message. Okay. If that's the place to start on a policy is how much is paid to the base and how much is paid to the PUA, that's a problem. But if 10% to the base is best, right, because the dishonesty in saying that some companies allow this, most do not, that's not true. There are some companies out there that'll go down to 6 and 4% to the base. Yeah. So if 1090 is good, why don't you go 96 or
right? Keep going.
94?
Why stop there?
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, why not just keep the cash
and go by term?
Just what I mean. If you're
go buy some stocks that pay a dividend.
There you go.
And put them in a retirement account, right?
And we're getting to the point there. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong or whether we're right or whether we are wrong, it's kind of beside the point. It's just not what we believe Nelson taught. And so if you want that, then,
because it's not what Nelson taught. So,
but if somebody still wants that, just know that that's not what Nelson put forth, and that somebody else other than myself can give it to you. Right, but if you want what Nelson did, then we feel that we have a very specific philosophy about how to do that.
Well, and beyond that, it's more than what Nelson did or didn't do. Nelson did it correctly.
Yeah,
I mean, by the time he printed Becoming Your Own Banker in 2000, the man had been a life insurance agent since 1964. His brother was a life insurance agent prior to that. And Nelson, purchased his first policy at age 13. Actually, his daddy did. And then his daddy gave it to him at age 14 and said, "Here, boy, this is yours. You pay for it." And I brought this up. I mean, it's like I asked him one time, "Nelson, why life insurance?" He said, "James, the best advice I ever received, consistently, financial advice, came from life insurance agents." Okay. So Nelson knew an awful lot about life insurance. Mm-hmm. Plus, he was an Austrian economist, and he understood the evils of banking, fractional reserve banking, cartelized banking. He understood real estate, did very well in real estate, and understood leverage, cash flows, and control. Mm-hmm. And he was a forester, understood the importance of thinking long range, proper classification. Are you going to tell me you, young man, going to come along and improve him when it comes to life insurance? Yeah, shut the front door. Anyway, so
part of this is calling out the distinguishing between light and dark. We have the opportunity to dwell on the negative, but at the same time, this is what's going on, right? This is what's going on in the industry, in the IBC footprint, in the Nelson Nash Institute. These are the conversations that are being had between agents or on YouTube, or whether you see it or you don't. That's what's happening, and so it's not like I just wake up in the morning and want to talk about it, but you got to address it, right? People are, whether it's agents who watch the videos and use them to educate their clients, or whether it's our clients who continue to watch the episodes, or whether it's new potential clients who continue to watch the episode. I mean, that's what they're hearing about. And so maybe I'm self-justifying, but I don't want to, we're not just spending time on it for the sake of it, right? No. And because we care. Look, there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it. And it was the subject, we're recapping, reviewing the 2020 think tank. It is something that you spoke to. Right. I
did, the noise. And then, too, it was very emotional, for me and some other speakers as well.
First year that Nelson was not present, and, it's in the same hotel room. I spoke from the same theater where a year prior we had played, a video that had been made about Nelson's life.
Yep.
And, we were sitting right about where he was sitting, and when we when that was first aired.
That
was tough. It was weird. The thing started off weird for me. And then, of course, the subject of my talk, mentorship, right? So framing the IBC conversation is the theme. You had a lot of the things that people in their professional capacity, if they're becoming agents, would need to know in order to succeed in the business. So you get to hear a lot about what other practitioners are doing. And then I kind of wrapped it up with a perspective from a recent, I consider myself still a mentee of yours, now a mentor to others, kind of and I think it's been very successful, and so kind of share that experience. And so I expanded upon that, and of course, Nelson was a mentor to us all, to you personally, to me personally, had pictures of him, and a lot of everything that I talked about was filtered through either my experience with him or my experience based on the things I had learned from him. And so, it was very difficult. I know it was difficult for you. It was difficult for me to, keep it together.
You did a good job. You did a better job than I did. I'm fine until.
I know you're tough on yourself for it, but it was proper. There was a place to be. It needed to be, the emotion is obvious. I think I told you, I think it's endearing. People see the honesty, the integrity, the authenticity. I think that's important for people to see.
I appreciate that. I hope that is clear. But, when my sister Julie walks in the room, I see you in the back of the room and some of these men that I have been around for 10 or 15 years. And, then Kim, David's wife, whom I call my sister. She walks in the room. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had to turn around. I couldn't even address the crowd. But
had to happen. We had, and that's kind of what when I was putting together the presentation. Because listen, last year
they gave him 2 weeks to prepare for his talk.
And last year we had they take video of the presentation and then kind of splice together the slides you use, right?
That sounds like it's so 1950s. Everything is digital now. Is there any real film anywhere?
And so I go back, and you can still watch it, and it's up. It'll stay up. But I went back and watched it, and it's like, why am I looking at slides half the time? I'm a emotional speaker. There's some value in watching me talk. Right? There's got to be something in the body language, right? And it's like I feel like I kind of lost some of that by looking at words all the time. It's like I know the words are there. If I wanted to just send you words, I would have emailed you, right? I'm up there talking for a reason. And so this year, it's like
talking to the crowd, not at the crowd,
right?
Yeah.
This year, rather than even have the opportunity to cut away to slides, I just included pictures. Right?
So they couldn't cut away from you.
And so I'm putting those slides together, and there's pictures of me and you. There's pictures of the two of us and Nelson. There's pictures with me and Nelson. And when he gave me this pen, and I'm sitting there thinking, what am I doing? Like, I'm setting myself up for failure here. I'm going to turn into an emotional wreck in front of the entire membership. But then it occurred to me, it's like, no, this needs to be done.
Sure.
It needed to be done.
You did a very good job. You did a very good job.
Yeah, standing ovation. I was surprised by that, surprised by the reception.
Why were you surprised by the reception?
I don't know if I hadn't envisioned it, or I didn't think about it ahead of time, or I didn't consider what the reception was going to be. I don't consider what the reception. I go up there, I'm going to tell you what's on my mind. Sure. Right? People call in. It's like, I don't know how to be any other kind of way, right? Sure. You couldn't give me a script. I would struggle to read it, right? It has to be off the cuff, very, and not just flippant. We don't say off the cuff like, saying anything that comes to mind, but I've been studying the economics for 10 years now, and this stuff has been thought through, right? But it comes out from a genuine place, and I don't think I have to say that. It should be obvious. So I don't consider, to answer your question, I don't really even think about what people are it didn't even cross my mind to consider, what are they going to think of this, right? I just knew that I had some things to say, and was very thankful to David and Bob and Carlos for the opportunity to share.
Sure.
But I'm glad it seemed to be well received, and then a lot of people had nice things to say. We had very good conversations.
Standing ovation. A standing ovation.
And I think, some things needed to be said that went unspoken a lot. This thing about policy design. I called it the elephant in the room. Everybody wants to know what's the perfect, even the idea, I wrote it down, even the idea that there could be the perfect IBC policy. There is no the perfect IBC policy. I don't know if it came across as, oh, that's obviously not the case, right? I don't know if that was made explicit enough, but there is not.
Probably not. You have to break it down for financial people, even in the NNI.
A lot of questions.
Make it simple for us.
Questions
Be
came
included.
up. Yeah, but when you spoke to policy design, the gentleman in the crowd, don't know who he was, nice guy, I'm sure, but he even said that it was like taking a confession. It felt like he verbalized that he had been new to the business and had wandered off into the noise, not because he wanted to, not because he's trying to add to the confusion or the obfuscation, the darkness out there, but it's enticing, right? The whole idea of temptation, it's enticing. Easy to make a sale. Look, you're not losing a lot, right? You only get, only 5% illiquidity year one.
Oh my God.
All to make a sale, right? Okay, so point being, that's out there. It's easy to go there. And I felt it needed to be said. It's not like I felt like I'm the only one to say it. I don't think I am. A lot of it, my understanding is based on what I've learned from you, and our understanding is based on what we learned from Nelson. So it's not like, oh, we're the ones that have to say it, but by gosh, somebody does. And I told you ahead of time, there are certain things that only you can say. And I still believe that, whether it's from the stage, at the event, or on this podcast, there are some things that only you can say because you have the experience that you have and you had the relationship you had with Nelson that not, I don't know, anybody else. I'm sure other people were close with Nelson. I'm not saying you're the only one, but there was a unique relationship there and there was a lot you learned, and that far more than even what goes on here, right? This is all just the aftermath. This is what happens. This is easy because a whole lot more goes on behind the scenes,
Yeah.
And sometimes some of that spills over onto this, and then we have to choose to not air an episode.
Well, there's a lot more than just the noise that was talked about. I mean, you did a good job you did a very good job on the mentorship and the mentee-mentor relationship, and it goes beyond just splitting business or doing business together and what to expect.
Yeah.
The Nelson Nash Institute was created to carry forward Nelson's legacy correctly, and not that I'm the police to get up every day and determine what's right or wrong, but do have some philosophical foundations. Yeah. So a new person coming into the NNI, and that's kind of changed. Originally the Nelson Nash Institute was created in 2013. Okay.
Yesterday. I mean, that's like,
I'd met Nelson 10 years prior to that. There's a lot of practitioners, agents, advisors that had been going to the think tank, as Nelson originally called it, for many years prior to that, right? And so you have all these things that are going on. Here we're advancing the idea of becoming your own banker. Right? But we're using dividend-paying life insurance. Well, there's agents involved in selling that, and there's the consumers purchasing that. The life insurance industry has its own history, very old and very rich, and they have some reputation. Parts of their reputation are well deserved. Right? All the black eyes that they have earned, they've earned them legitimately. But there's also a very rich history of life insurance. The very basic concept of this mutual benefit that you spoke of in mentee relationship.
One of the 4 things.
The mutual relationship with a mutual life insurance company and the policy. I mean, it's a wonderful idea. It's a benevolent idea. It's a real, legitimate way to solve economic needs, right? And so life insurance has a rich history, and it goes way back beyond 200 or 300 years. I'm just talking 200 or 300 years in the current formation of stock company, mutual companies, and some of the policy provisions. When NNI was created in 2013 to carry forward Nelson's legacy in a proper way, because there is this construct that we live in the financial world, the life insurance companies didn't create this idea of becoming your own banker, right? It's a ground up. Nelson discovered it. Nelson added scale. So it's important, I think, because you're not going to learn it anywhere else. You're not going to learn life insurance and the idea of becoming your own banker anywhere else, right?
Nope.
Other than the Nelson Nash Institute. But now because we use dividend paying life insurance, everybody who has a license to sell life insurance, all of a sudden, immediately, almost overnight, becomes an expert, right? And I love you. I do not need your comments. My encouragement to you would be the same encouragement that I gave to the NNI practitioners. Study and know your subject. All right, don't educate me, please. I might need to take that out. I read, I educate, I self-educate. I do not need to be educated by a financial professional. Thank you.
Yeah.
My encouragement is for you to learn. I'll continue learning, right? And I'm going to continue to share what I've learned.
Yep. There are some things, a number of things popped into my mind as you were talking about that. 34. Yeah, take it out. That's good.
I don't want to be hard on these financial people, but man,
some of them need to be hard on. There's
some of them deserve it, just like the insurance company. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, we don't have to dwell on it. I got to beat them up, but there's distinctions need to be made. And so as you were speaking, some of the things that came to my mind, there are certain things that I have just lost tolerance for, and I'm not sorry about it. And I know it confuses some people and it irritates others. There are just certain things that I'm no longer willing to do. Right? I'm no longer willing to explain to somebody the value of life insurance. By now, we have done enough. We have put enough podcasts out. Nelson's book has been around long enough. The resources are available for somebody who's genuinely interested to go and vet for themselves, right? As it should be done. I'm not going to vet it for you anyway, right? The individual, there's enough out there for the individual to go investigate whether what these financial entertainers say about how dividend paying whole life is the worst place to put money. There's enough out there. Right. So at this point, and there are the converse of that is there's enough people out there who have done that, who do watch the video, who do read the book, right? Who call up and say, oh my gosh, not only have I watched the whole podcast, I've watched episodes 2 and 3 times. I'm on my 3rd reading of the book. I have a couple questions about things that haven't clicked yet. But other than that, where do I send the check?
Right.
Those are the people who demonstrate to me that they have invested their own time and energy, your most precious asset. They've been chosen already without me having to convince them, without anybody having to tell them to do it, to go out and discover and vet for themselves up front, right? Okay, the person who does that, they deserve the time.
They moved to the front
of the line, right? Front of the line. Front of the line. You could text me, you can call me. I had a conversation with the client the other day. And he was, the people who really know us, the level of respect, I'm so grateful. The level of respect they show is really tremendous. They don't want to take too much of your time. Very generous, very kind, very considerate.
Man, our clients are wonderful. I mean,
it's unreal. Like the kind of relationship that you get by just advancing what Nelson did. It's like, oh my gosh.
Isn't that the relationship you want with everyone? I mean, don't you want to be around like-minded people that you like and care about that are considerate and kind?
Yeah. So another thing I've lost tolerance for is the antagonism towards commission. It's like, listen, the thing that there's money involved. I make money for a living. So do you. You shouldn't want to do business with somebody who doesn't, right? Is it even business then? In fact, if someone is, you're going to do business, quote unquote, with somebody who doesn't want you to make money, maybe there's, some taxation or some theft or something illicit going on in the background, right? If mutual benefit implies everybody gets something of value, that can be a commission, it can be a dividend paying whole life insurance policy, and all that's okay. That's all above board, right? In my talk, I had to remind everybody, it's okay to receive a commission. It's okay to split one. And for a client to do business with somebody who is going to get paid is also a good thing, right? That's all above board. Yeah. And so that's
no question.
It's become, it's not comical, but it almost is when people are, and it's because of the construct that's out there. It's not that people are being malicious about it. I don't believe that. I think that they've just been, everybody's conception of life insurance is based on somebody else's misconception.
No question.
And I think everybody's conception of life insurance agents is based on somebody else's misconception of life insurance agents.
I always ask, just don't judge me by another character.
Right. So same thing. But my point is, though, that the money is like, it's good. And I'm a capitalist, red-blooded capitalist, I bleed profit. It's okay. But the true value is in the relationships that you gain with people. This relationship, the relationship with the clients, right? Someone who calls up who's already paying tens of thousands of dollars into a policy, who just has a few questions, right? Who doesn't want to take much of my time. I'm like, dude, for you, I have all sorts of time.
Call anytime.
Yeah, I have all sorts of time, you know?
Sure.
And it's not about the size of the premium, don't get me wrong. No. I got people paying a lot less. Move the decimal point whatever place you want, right? I had that conversation with somebody too recently. It's like,
that conversation needs to happen more often.
It does. It's not about how much, listen, you can't have too much capital, so you can't have too much cash value, so you can't pay too much premium. What's limiting you is your imperfect ability to generate income. What limits me is my imperfect ability to generate income.
The greatest limiter of all mankind resides between his ears.
And I'm so guilty of that. My gosh. Talk about what goes on off camera. But all you need is a good place to put money. It has to be proper design from a well-run mutual insurance company. So you can't have too much cash value. You can't pay too much.
Get out of my way.
Right. You can't pay too much premium. So it's okay to pay a lot of premium. And going through a case right now, they're going to pay substantial premium. They've been productive, participated in the economy, started and ran businesses, and they have the capability to pay a lot of premium. And by gosh, if you're making a lot of money, you should be paying a lot of premium.
And let me say here too, because I did an interview with Adam Edwards previously, a gentleman up north that is not a client. And that particular episode has had a lot of very positive comments, right? And most of them have gone along the lines of, oh, he's an ordinary guy. He's like one of us. And I appreciate the straightforward honesty and the clarity that, he's just, a Midwestern family man, father, working and doing something different than what the financial construct has told him to do. Mm-hmm. And it's practicing the banking concept very successfully. But what does that mean? He's ordinary. He's like us, and you go on YouTube and you can see all of these presentations that talk about hundreds of thousands of dollars in premium. And you can feel less than. It's like, oh, I can't do that because I can't pay a $10,000 or $20,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 premium or whatever. And when you said move the decimal point either way, it's actually absolutely correct. Right now, you can pay too small of premium. I'm not saying that
most do.
No, everyone starts too small anyway. But you shouldn't limit yourself. I don't care if you're a tobacco user. I don't care what your personal situation is. Don't sell yourself short. Don't cut yourself short.
Yeah.
Don't not make an effort to see if you can become your own banker. And my point is, you can't emphasize that statement enough. You can move the decimal point either way. The only reason someone doesn't pay $10 million a year in life insurance premium is they don't have the ability. When you understand what's going on with dividend paying life insurance structured this way with a well-run mutual company, and then you're working with somebody who knows what is going on in the big wide world and can properly classify things, I don't care. The only reason you don't pay tens of millions of dollars in life insurance premium is because you don't have the ability. Okay, if you don't have the ability to pay $10 million, do you have the ability to pay $1 million? I don't know, and I don't care. Do you have the ability to pay $100,000? I don't know, and I don't care. If you do have the ability, you should, is what I'm saying. You should vet this idea for yourself to see. Prove me wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't really care if you think I'm wrong. So I'm not inviting. I'm just saying, prove me wrong. If you prove it's not for you, God bless you. Right. So if I can't pay $10,000 or $100,000, just keep moving the decimal point. Get started somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. So in everything else, until you write a check, is conversation. Everything is conversation. Nothing happens in a free market, capitalistic society until value exchanges hands. And there is, that's a good thing. Right? Mm-hmm. I want you to be profitable. I want you to earn a living. I don't care how you classify the income, bonuses, commissions, salary, capital gains. I don't care how you classify it.
Yeah.
I want you to be profitable, and I want you to be successful. Why? Because I'm a capitalist. Right? I mean, there's this idea, the zero-sum game. We've talked about that in the past. You have to lose for me to win. I have to lose for you to win. It's socialist.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
In the capitalist society, I win, you win. We both win.
Yeah. And the more financial designations you have, the more likely you are to be lost in that kind of thinking. I'm just saying. Okay. In general, there's exceptions, and
you can back that up.
Are exceptional.
Yep, he said it, and he said it correctly. You can rewind and listen to that again, and then go prove him wrong. Go read some of the textbooks and all your designation prerequisite coursework.
Talking about loss tolerance, man. The idea that, my guy can do this, or, we can do this. I mean, God bless them. Maybe they can. Maybe they can.
That reminds me of the front lines. And they're pretty much comments on Facebook or YouTube or wherever. Well, I had a life insurance license years ago, and I think I'm going to go get licensed again so I can write my own policy. Yeah. Excuse me. Well, hell, I might need some medical procedures. Hell, I'll go get a license so I can do my own medical procedure. Not that I'm equating, physicians to financial. I need a will, or I need some estate planning. Damn, I'll go get a law degree. Not that it's life insurance licensing and all of that is as complicated as law. I'm not saying anything like that. I need my carpet cleaned.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm going to go start a carpet cleaning company to clean my carpet. My
My
dog needs to be groomed. I'm going to go get a dog grooming license. I mean, think about it. Look, my car, my truck, my beautiful truck that you've all seen how I financed. I still drive it today. And I love it. It's a Hemi. And I drive like a grandma. I got to tell you, I don't bust over 55 miles an hour. It needs to go to the shop every now and then. You know what spark plugs cost for that thing?
Nope.
I found out the other day, and I really don't care. But I don't want to go become a mechanic to keep my car tuned up. The beautiful pool that we financed, and my wife was cleaning in that video. I don't want to learn how to manage that pool.
Right.
I don't. Where does that come from? See, I think it comes from the idea that you're going to get more than me. If I'm the consumer and I'm buying life insurance, I'm going to lose something if you gain. And I
think that can only come out of disinformation or misinformation, a lack of understanding. If we know what's going to happen,
thinking, no question.
Yeah. If you know what's going to happen, then that would not be the case. Sometimes I think we spend too much time addressing that because really the problem is just
other people think we spend too much time as well.
Wow. Get in line, okay? But I do think it needs to be addressed because if someone understands what is going on, if you know what's going on, you'll know what to do, right? Just like Nelson said, very simply, very accurate, a lot of implications from another very simple statement. If you know what's going on, you'll know what to do. And, going back to the relationships that I have with my clients, it's like we're close. Those are my people.
It's a love fest, isn't it? It is.
It's a little. It's
a love fest.
You would never know it going in. You'd never. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes in this business that people are just not aware of, that I wasn't aware of. And it speaks to what I spoke about at the think tank, was that, when I came into the Nelson Nash Institute, I didn't really know what to expect, right? What I should or what I could expect. I knew that there was going to be a procedure to get in. You had to interview, you go through the coursework, you take the exam, and then there's an assignment to a mentor, right? I knew all of that. But that's about it. I didn't know how to approach that. Fortunately, it worked out really well, right? But there was no structure to it, right? So I hope that talk is indicative of what other future mentees can expect when they approach the relationship.
I think that it will help them and the mentors greatly.
Yeah, and they should know it was for everyone. And for the people watching who are not in the business, this is relevant to you too, because so much of what I think is appropriate for the agent and for the agent-to-agent relationship, for the mentor-mentee relationship, translates over to the agent-client relationship, right? A willingness to pay your dues. Like I said earlier, spend the time, be willing to vet. The understanding of mutual benefit, what we've been talking about. It's okay for somebody to make a commission. You're going to get something valuable out of it too. We both are, right? We wouldn't had basic economics, right? That we wouldn't do anything. We wouldn't make any exchange if immediately prior to that exchange, I didn't believe I was going to gain and you didn't believe you were going to gain, right? Has to be the case. Okay, let's just embrace that and scale up, like Nelson said, right? So the idea of mutual benefit, you should have a minimally sufficient shared value set. You and me, the client and the agent, we don't have to be carbon copies. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a libertarian. You don't have to be an Austrian economist. Listen, I like the people who are all those things, don't get me wrong. But you don't have to be. All we have to agree on is the nature of becoming your own banker. Right? I need to know that you know the essentials of what this policy is all about, how to manage it, so that if I get hit by a truck tomorrow, you know what you've got, why you've bought it, and what you're going to do with it in the future.
And how to do it.
So minimum sufficient shared value set. If we can agree on those things, by gosh, we can do some business and you can pay some premium.
And you can be profitable. And generations after you.
Oh my gosh.
Be profitable.
What I'm going through now with this disproportionately large case is, they're learning, just what is possible, right? They don't even, we have no idea of the impact we can have on future generations by just taking control of the banking function. It's going to benefit me. I'm not going to have to be dependent upon third-party capital. I'm not going to be held at the whim of the bank and might call the note due or take me to bankruptcy court or all of these possible things that so many are unaware of that really can happen. I can sail clear around that, right? By becoming my own banker, live a much more prosperous, profitable, peaceful life. Oh, and I can go throw untold sums of money at my people, my beneficiaries, on a tax-free basis when I happen to graduate.
Well, you could put a bunch of money in the stock market and get a great big return. You get a step up in basis anyway. I was talking to a financial person earlier, talking about stories from the front lines. And he's like, James, why am I even doing this? The financial guy. It's like, I can put the money in the market and in next 20, 30 years, and I'll get a step up. My kids will get a step up in basis anyway. And I'm just a nice guy. And I'm like, sure, you can do that. But why don't you do what you're telling your people to do?
Ooh. Practicing what you preach, man. That's...
Yeah.
New agents who come, they're like, how do I just need to be able to, convey this to a client. I've got all these people. They're all ready. Everybody's ready.
Can I have my people call you?
Yeah.
Will you sit in on this call, James?
Yes. Yeah. Uncompensated. First question. Do you own a policy?
What? No, I own a term policy. I'm going to buy a term policy. I'm going to buy one. Yeah,
it's convertible.
That. Well, that's better than nothing, right? Is it convertible with a stock company or a mutual company? Okay, don't be ugly.
I know.
To the practitioners, or not the practitioners, but to the financial professional. But look, when you mentioned earlier, it's like you don't have to be just like me. And I agree with that. You don't have to be just like me. As a matter of fact, I talk about the differences quite often. But we're an awful lot alike as well.
Yeah.
And we do business with like-minded people. They don't have to be exactly like us. And, oh, my gosh, would you even want them to be?
Yeah.
No. But you did say you don't have to be a Christian. And I'm just making a note of that. Okay, and maybe that's a fair statement. You don't have to be Christian. But it just reminded me.
It's okay for Christians to do business together. Is that what you're saying?
It is okay for Christians to do business together. It reminds me one time when I was a young man traveling all over Texas. Right, wearing out a car, selling small face amount whole life policies, which I completely believed in and still do today, but they were with stock companies. I didn't come up with a mutual company life insurance, training and all that. Thank goodness, because I'm a slow learner. I'd had to unlearn an awful lot, which I already did anyway. I had to unlearn an awful lot, but I didn't have to unlearn that part.
Right.
Okay, I'm traveling all over the country, being Texas, gone all week, taking grocery money out of our family budget, leaving the wife at home with the small children, and literally traveling all over the country, Texas, writing small face amount whole life policies. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm driving back one time after a week out in the field, and I did okay. I mean, I did okay. I mean, because I worked, right? And I'm like all puffed up and angry, and, I'm like, God, why do I have to work with these people? Can't I work with Christians? Can't I work with your children? Why do I have to work with all these heathen and whatever? But see, I never, ever, and still to this day, I don't bring up politics, religion, and things like that. That's the way that I was raised, right? And let me tell you what, after my whining session, right, I think for the next 6 months, everybody I met, everybody I sat down with, to the person, they brought up their relationship with God. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. Thank you, Lord. I will not ever say that again. I mean, he made it a point, in my opinion, to all of my clients, the majority of my clients happen to be Christian, right? So, I mean, Islam doesn't believe in interest. They don't believe in life insurance, right? Yeah. So, consequently, I don't have a lot of Islamic clients. Yeah. I mean, I have a few that, I don't know, newer generations or younger people. So am I touching a third rail?
No, it's good. It's good.
I'm just saying that I don't have a box.
I'm not afraid to talk about that.
I'm not afraid to talk about anything. My box is you got to be you. You've got to be real, and a little bit weird is okay and preferred.
Listen, if you're investigating infinite banking,
you're a little weird.
You're a little weird. So are we. We know it's okay. It's okay to be a little weird. You wouldn't want to be like everybody else anyway. But the reason I say that is because, here we are 2020. So October will be the 3rd anniversary of when I was baptized. So there was a time, believe it or not, when I was, one of these hyper-rationalistic agnostic types. And, that person in 2016 bought his first policy. So he wasn't totally lost. But then, of course,
there's redemption for all.
And this is good for people to know about my story, especially if you're going to call.
Well, we've talked about this, but we need to interview each other sometime.
We should get to that.
We should do that. Because there's a lot that y'all don't know about him that you would want to know.
Well, add that to the very long list of things that we should and have yet to do. Oh, yeah. But Nelson was a big part, huge part of that. You were a big part of that transition. We had already
a Christian.
Yeah.
Oh, good, perfect.
Yeah. Because I met Nelson in May of 2016, right? So that was about a year and a half before finally getting baptized in Lubbock, Texas, right? Okay. Hillside Christian Church, 98th in Milwaukee. Still go back, still visit.
Yeah. The Flatlands.
But yeah, he was a big part of that. There are clients right now going through underwriting. And we have had this discussion about, how things do align biblically. And then you hear about, you always hear about the people who read through Nelson's book, or they're talking about the think tank, our subject, and one of the reasons they give themselves for not wanting to go is this allegation that we're just a bunch of preachy Christians, right? Oh. And it's like, okay,
most people don't call me anymore. I got to say, about probably 15 years ago, 14. It's 2020. Probably 12 or 13 years ago. All right, before it was just the Nelson Nash think tank. Nelson Nash, Becoming Your Own Banker think tank, Birmingham, Alabama. Okay. Way back in the day, agents got together, like at the beginning of the year, and it was kind of like a think tank, and we would share ideas and presentations. And Nelson and David would come to those, and they would select different presentations for the think tank. Mm-hmm. Okay. So word got out on the street, with some agents all over the country, not that many. There were a handful, like 20 when I first went. Anyway, I had a phone call back then from a guy, I think he was from New Jersey. And he's like, James, I'm calling because, I've read this Nelson Nash book and I think I want to go to Birmingham, but, all you guys are, you're just a bunch of, I don't want to be preached to. You're a bunch of Christians and I don't want to. And I was like, okay, please then don't come. I mean, are you serious? You don't want to learn the truth about money because you're afraid God is going to be mentioned? You know, it's like,
yeah,
I don't know who you are, but we never met, and I hope you've done well.
Yeah. And you just think that one, spend enough time thinking about that.
And I was talking about this last night with Jana and Riley, that when Nelson, and we were talking about his 10-hour presentation, right? No, it was at dinner, the whole family. And Nelson, when in this 10-hour presentation, you know, his brother, life insurance agent, sold him his 1959 State Farm policy. His brother graduated. Stories in the first of Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker. And he said often, he said, you know, when I graduate, I'm going to pass the pleasantries and I'm going to go right to brother and ask brother, because his brother also sold IDS, American Express investment program. He said, why did you sell me this? Why didn't you tell me about life insurance? You've heard Nelson. When I graduate, I'm going to pass the pleasantries and I'm going to go ask brother, why didn't you do this? Right? And then Nelson would always say in this 10-hour seminar, he's like, if you don't know where you're going when you graduate, we need to stop right here. You need to see me after. That's the most important thing we can get straight today.
He was very direct about that.
And made no apologies about it.
Yeah. So neither do I. And I'm used to, you know, it's like, oh, I don't want to talk about everything you hear online and the internet marketing experts. Dang near everything they say, you just flip it around the opposite, and you've got the truth. You know,
I don't talk to internet marketing gurus.
Yeah, well, I can't avoid them on the Facebook ads, and then you got the marketing consultants out there who like to talk about how good it is to follow people around on the internet. You know, I just have if that's for you. You know, dive right in. There's plenty of it out there.
I touched on some of that with my talk at NNI when it comes to the agents and using this, being dependent upon third-party software because you can't convey the message of the infinite banking concept, and you can't convey the message of the infinite banking concept because you don't know your subject, which is banking and who's controlling the banking function. The subject is becoming your own banker, quote unquote, the book, Nelson Nash's book.
Yeah.
And then, we're using life insurance. You need to know something about banking. You need to know something about forestry, long range thinking, proper classification. And I got to work this in on this episode because we did talk about the upcoming think tank prior to going to the think tank in an episode.
Yes.
And I said in that episode, I'd really like to work in proper classification and Noah's mandate. And I did.
Yeah.
So it was awesome.
And I hope people picked up on that. So I continued that thread towards the end of my talk too, saying that the flood is coming.
That's right.
Just organically, we see the numbers on this podcast. Not saying that, it's somewhat indicative of the interest in IBC. So we see those numbers. We see it in the increasing number of clients. We see it in the quality of the research that people have done prior to engaging in the process. All of that is just improving over time. And that, at least for us, is organic. There's no marketing strategy, SEO strategy behind it. That's just showing up, telling people who we are, what we do. And that's all happening in the midst of the greatest increase in stock market prices in the history of the country.
No, in the history
all
of the
that's
world.
happening.
Yeah, in your lifetime, greatest market increase. Wonder why.
Just consider what's going to happen when this correction comes.
Now, don't be a doom and gloomer. Golly.
I'm not. Okay, all the Austrians, there's a lot of them out there. I won't name them.
If you talk about it, you're going to make it. You're going to make the market crash just by talking about it.
Listen, I could be in the real estate market. I don't mind a discount on prices of property in the DFW area.
And you can get into homes now for less than 5% down and 2.9%.
Oh yeah,
financing.
Those bankers are anxious to start that relationship, aren't they?
Well, let me close the loop because I fear sometimes that I don't close my points when I spoke about the third party software as an example in my talk, and the problem and my encouragement being that the practitioner know their subject well enough to convey the power of the infinite banking concept without being dependent upon third-party software of any kind, marketing, calculators, machinations, whatever. And I think that that's important because
Absolutely.
if I build a practice, if I gain and build a clientele based on third-party software that I'm dependent upon, I'm making them dependent upon that third-party software as well. And it's not, I understand we want to convey the power. And if we lack knowledge of the subject, then we tend to look for support material to convey the power. And we're promoting, it's very easy to promote noise and dependency whenever this idea is a freeing solution, creating independency.
Betrays the spirit of becoming your own banker.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the less you know about the subject, the more likely you are to enable dependency. And it's not, there's a moral element, right? We can take a value judgment and say that whether that's good or bad, but then there's just the efficacy of it. Is that going to work out? So in my talk, I distinguish between gaining a client and purchasing a liability.
Building and creating a liability. Yes, absolutely.
If that, and for the client or for the individuals, member of the public watching, who wants that? Who wants to be manipulated or convinced, whichever it might be, into making a sale based on some sales system? Wouldn't you want to be in a position of sufficient, essential knowledge, right? If you know what's going on, you'll know what to do. If you know what's going on, well, that's why the illustration comes at the very end of the process.
Brother, tell me how I get there.
Well,
how do I get there?
There's a 92-page book that you should read.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's exactly where to start.
And that's exactly where to start.
And he wrote a second book.
Mm-hmm. It's okay to read them both.
And he's got a 10-hour seminar available for under $200.
Yeah.
Under $200. That's 2 meals out with your family. Mm-hmm. It's a tire in today's world. I mean, seriously. And if you're going to go into debt for anything, go put that on your credit card and then be diligent to pay the credit card off. Go purchase that. Yeah. Then you don't have to rely on James Neathery. You don't have to rely on Ryan Griggs. You don't have to rely on the Banking with Live podcast, although it's still a great resource.
Yeah, and we're still here. It's not like I don't ever want to hear from you, right? That we maintain whatever level of agent-client relationship that you think is appropriate.
Well, let me tell you,
it's going to vary by person to person.
If you watch that 10-hour seminar, right, at least once, more than once, then you get on YouTube. And it's like, oh my gosh, you'll be able to sift through the noise in short order, and you will melt down our phones. I believe that.
Well, it
happens.
It happens.
Anyway, and we're thankful. I'm looking forward to speaking to each and every one of you. Can't wait. And he as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
did we do a good job of? We don't do enough of that. Saying it's okay to call.
It is okay to call. Listen, if you want to become your own banker and you want to practice the infinite banking concept correctly and want some guidance, want some assistance, want some help, contact us. Yeah. Contact me in my office, contact him, his contact information, and it's okay. Look, you need to work with the best. There's no reason you should sell yourself short. You're looking, the best infinite banking policies in North America come through this office right here. And I've got both feet on the ground while I'm saying that. And I'm a humble guy. I'm not a bodacious brag. I'm not that guy. It's a fact. Why? Because it's true.
Yeah.
All right. Now let me say too that, so my admonishment and my encouragement to the practitioners when I spoke was to know your subject, not at just a fundamental level that you can understand it.
I like how you put it. You need to be able to teach the teacher.
That is correct.
That's the level. What do we mean when we say mastery? You need to be able to teach a teacher.
That's right. And that came from Leonard E. Reed, Nelson Nash's mentor. And we were talking in the not to be released episode that Leonard wrote a lot of books. I don't even know how many, and they're all available.
Over 50 of them
on Mises and Fee, I believe, digitally. Maybe we'll put that link in there. Leonard E. Reed, his books. I like owning them in hardback. I have about 20 something. I love them. Okay, he Leonard E. Reed told Nelson one time, he's like, well, I've been too busy to write. I've got to take some time off to write, get caught up on my writing. And so he did that, and then found out that it wouldn't flow, so he had to go back to work so it would flow so he could continue writing. And that conversation with Nelson and myself had, we also talked about Leonard E. Reed. What he said often and told Nelson was, Nelson, you go only where called, but do everything in your power to be worthy to be called. And that's pretty powerful. So
yeah, that's very powerful.
I never feel the need I never feel like I have to promote ever. I'll go everywhere I'm called, and I'll only go where I'm called. Right. So you need to call, and until you call, I'm going to be diligently improving myself and my knowledge, my understanding to be worthy of that call.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And that's the purpose of the think tank. I think I wrote talking about the flood that's coming, talking about the change in the market, where all this is going to come from. And it's going to come, it's happening now. The pace is just going to increase. In the article that I wrote to sort of recap, the one that was republished in Banknotes, I said that the problem is not that there are too few consumers of infinite banking. The problem is that there are too few advisors who are, like you said, worthy to be called. Right? There's the idea of market penetration or saturation, or that's just in a country with 350 plus million people, and how many attendees at the think tank? 180, maybe a third of them were active full-time IBC practitioners.
No,
speaking generally, there were a lot of mentees and a lot of new people who haven't yet, and a lot of guests of practitioners. So maybe it's a third, maybe it's half. I don't know. I mean, that many. Let's round up, call it 150, right?
Thanks for being generous.
In this whole country, 30 of them were Canadians,
right?
So you think about all that, and it's like, you want to talk about a growth market?
Gosh. I've been diligently guilting some of my old compadres into returning to the Nelson Nash Institute.
Keep dripping on them.
People who have participated previously and for whatever reason wandered off, and they're coming back, and they need to come back. Some of these men that have been in the industry 25, 30, 35 years, they need to come back, and they are. And they need to come back because of exactly what you said. There's a lot of young people in the Nelson Nash Institute. There are more and more people coming, and it's a beautiful thing. And you better gear up and ramp up, because the general public is coming. Everybody knows there's something fundamentally wrong in the economy. Everybody knows
that.
And when you see and you're exposed to this idea, this concept, it's like, oh my gosh, where's this been my whole life? I mean, the flood is coming.
But what is the rate of return in the 15th year?
Hey.
All right. I wanted to say one other thing. I enjoyed your Valentine's Day podcast episode with Jana.
Oh, thank you. I did too.
Jana. It was nice to hear my name thrown around as often as it was. And I mean, it's okay for her episode to have more likes than mine. That's all right. But let's make it close.
It does.
Let's make it a close competition so that I feel better, So it's okay to hit like and hit subscribe.
Listen,
and all that.
Man,
do it on the episode that I'm co-hosting, okay? I thought her perspective was so valuable for people to have, though. I'm really glad y'all did that.
Well, thank you. I typically don't listen, but I've listened to that one 2 or 3 times, and I think I was overly critical.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but no, I'm kidding.
I think I was overly critical in the beginning. I've listened to it 2 or 3 times. I mean, look, it's difficult for me to listen to myself.
Yeah.
Because him and haw, yeah, and I don't speak proper English, but I think we conveyed some basic things that I was hoping that we could convey. But I thoroughly enjoyed that. I appreciate you mentioning that. And I appreciate you all being very nice and continuing to like that. If I have to boost any videos, you got to know I'm going to boost that one if, to make sure she wins out over Mr. Griggs.
That's all right. I'm still confident in my abilities. She can win. That's fine.
No, we had fun. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay. Thank you for listening. I had fun. I can't wait to talk with you again.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.